Meanwhile, another tragic motor accident was reported from the Ganithapura area in Warakapola a short while ago. An infant was killed in the accident. According to the Warakapola police, the accident had occurred when a car collided with a lorry.
In more local news, according to the police, investigations have been launched into the recent attack on an army officer at a luxury hotel in Colombo. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohana stated that 2 police teams have been deployed to apprehend the culprits.
A few days ago, an incident occurred at a luxury hotel. An army major had given a statement in this regard. His pistol and mobile phone, which were reported missing, had been returned by a particular driver. The names of 2 individuals who are directly involved in the incident have been mentioned in the complaint. It has also been reported that another 5 or 6 individuals were involved in the incident. The Slave Island Police Crimes Division had taken nearly 10 statements with regard to the incident. The data that has been collected will be analysed and the necessary steps will be taken.
Meanwhile, Hirunika Premachandra says that the police have not been able to arrest those responsible for her father's death.
I have known Minister Mervin's son since I was a child. There are 2 sides to every story. I am of the view that the police must arrest the culprits if any wrong has been committed. The culprits are still at large. This is the same thing that has happened to my father's incident. If a crime has been committed, then justice must be served to the criminals and the aggrieved parties. I suspect as to whether the police have done their duty as a law enforcement agency.
How will the police act with regard to these incidents? The sacred Kapilavastu relics, which were venerated across the country over the past few days, were flown back to India today.
The Kalaniya Rajamahavihara was the final destination for the sacred Kapilavastu relics in Sri Lanka before being flown back to India. I appreciate this opportunity. We won't be able to see something like this in our whole life. We are very lucky. Meanwhile, President Mahinda Rajapaksa took part in religious observances that were held for the sacred relics this afternoon. The exposition of the sacred relics was broadcast live on our sister channel Sirsa TV today as well. Following religious observances this afternoon, the relics were taken to the Katnayaka International Airport. The sacred relics are being taken to India in a specially chartered flight.
A large number of vehicles affected by substandard petrol. 3,302 complaints received. Compensation granted to 1,887. 2,600 metric tons of substandard petrol withdrawn. Reports of vehicles and machinery being affected by substandard diesel. Charges emerge: 20,000 metric tons of substandard diesel imported by a once blacklisted company.
Former CPC officials had reinstated the company into the list.
A 3-member committee appointed to look into the matter. Reports compiled by the committee handed over to the ministry. When will compensation be paid to affected motorists?
You're watching Primetime News live here on News First. Up next is Action TV.
The slogans of the demonstrations organized by parents on behalf of school children and the university students representing higher education, demanding for the improvement of physical and human resources, has created a slogan which could be understood by all of society. The slogan, which is established by the Federation of University Teachers Associations, is that the government spending on education must be increased. Fulfilling a demand of this nature seriously affects the preconceptions of education held by the government and the officials who take decisions regarding education. Some officials who are hoping to build political careers through education have failed to even maintain education institutions, let alone develop them, and have prioritized the establishment of new institutions. The Maharagama Teacher Training School, which at over a century old is the topmost teacher training institution in the country, is being dragged to its grave due to this misplaced prioritization. The technical training building, which was a gift from overseas 50 years ago, was allowed to go into ruin and then handed over to an adjacent school with great pomp and ceremony. It is a mystery as to what happened not only to the equipment in this building, which is worth millions, but also to the list which contained an inventory of the equipment. However, a full stop was placed to practical training for technical subjects through this teacher training school several years before this. As of today, these laboratories are not being used to broaden the knowledge of the teachers being trained here. Just like these laboratories, the only hostel belonging to the teacher training school is not fit for human habitation. Of the teachers who are enrolled to the training school, only 60 teachers receive residential facilities. While 60 teachers currently being trained at the school are supposedly residing at the hostel, they and 140 others who are training with them are currently renting other accommodation at their own cost. Police logs bear testament to the fact that this plot of land, located less than a kilometre away from the Maharagama Teacher Training School, has seen many a theft being carried out in broad daylight. The hostel located on this land has been in darkness since Saturday. According to the teachers residing here, there is no security guard at this building either. Is the delay in fixing this problem an indirect ploy to get these teachers to quit their training? Secretary to the Ministry of Education, this one is over to you.
The former Director General of the Al Jazeera network, Wada Kanfa, says that if the West and the Arab world are to improve post-9/11 relations, then the West must embrace the Arab Spring as a democratic reform and stop trying to prevent specific parties from coming into power. Kanfa made this statement during an exclusive interview with News First's Anuradha Herath during his short stay in Sri Lanka.
I think the West has, from 11 September, and as you know now, for more than 1 decade now, 11 years have passed, I think has gone through major mistakes in understanding what's happening in the Arab world. And that created a lot of sentimental feeling in the West and in the Arab world against each other. The Arab Spring came to give an opportunity for both parties to explore new future. Because the Arab Spring put everything in perspective. And instead of the anger and the frustration of the Arabs being put in the shape of violence, like Al-Qaeda and so on and so forth, it has been put in the shape of democratic transformation. So it depends how the Western attitude will develop towards this new reality. If Europe and the States start to embrace democratization in the Arab world and support it in a proper manner without trying to block the arrival of this party and that party to power, I think we have a chance of correcting our relationship.
Well, you can catch the full interview with Wada Kanfa, the former Director General of the Al Jazeera network, on Global Perspectives on Monday the 24th of September at 8:30 p.m. on MTV Sports.
On to business news now. The Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Newad Cabral, says that the miracle which they believed in has now dawned upon Sri Lanka. The Governor of the Central Bank made this comment at an event in Colombo today.
The laying of the foundation stone for a new car park for the Central Bank of Sri Lanka took place today under the auspices of Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. At times people ask me as to what this miracle is. I tell them to look at Colombo. Look at the roads. You need not go too far. These are things we could not imagine. A miracle occurs when things you can't imagine happen. These things have happened. At a time when we are trying to bring investors to the country, it is this development that they will see. Even when we visit foreign nations, we look at the infrastructure to measure the country. The same way, when investors come to Sri Lanka, they see these things and they come up with their own measurement. That is why development is important.
The bodies of the 6 soldiers who died at the Diatalawa army camp after an earth embankment fell on them have been brought to their homes for the final rites. The soldiers met this fate last Monday when they were constructing the foundation for a wall near an earth embankment.
The deceased soldiers were attached to the Army Special Forces Administrative Unit. Corporal Jayavira Disanayaka, a resident of Pallegama in Nawalapitiya, was one of the victims of the tragic accident. 4 of Corporal Disanayaka's 5 siblings are also serving in the army. Corporal Jayavira and his wife had been attempting to conceive a child for quite some time. Tragically, his death came at a time when his wife was 2.5 months pregnant. According to our correspondent in the area, the corporal had been on the phone with his wife when tragedy struck. Corporal Liam Ranjit Kumar Ekanayaka was another victim of the tragic accident. The 35-year-old resident of Hiripitiya Kumbukwagama was the eldest in a family of 4. Corporal W.G. Gamini Priyantha, a resident of the Mahawa Udagama area, was another individual who was killed in the accident. The 28-year-old corporal was a father of 2. The final rites for these soldiers will be performed tomorrow.
A religious ceremony invoking the gods was held at the Kali Kovil in Kurumankadu, Vavuniya, seeking justice for Tamil political prisoners and missing individuals. Tamil National Alliance parliamentarians, members of the Democratic People's Front and the relatives of missing persons participated in the ceremony. Our correspondent stated that the group smashed 1,008 coconuts opposite the statue of God Kali, praying for justice to be meted out. The group stated that Tamil political prisoners should be released as soon as possible and that the government should look into the matter of missing persons.
In the meantime, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Kamalesh Sharma, says that Sri Lanka is one of the oldest democracies in the Commonwealth. He expressed this view at a media briefing held in Colombo today.
Some people have concerns about the state of democracy in Sri Lanka. Recent provincial elections, there were hundreds of allegations of malpractice by the governing coalition. Also, the commissions you mentioned that the Commonwealth is going to strengthen, from the National Electoral Commission, National Human Rights Commission, are completely hand-picked by President Rajapaksa, thanks to a constitutional amendment in 2010 which abolished the independence of a whole series of national commissions.
Sri Lanka is one of the oldest democracies in the Commonwealth. Is one of the founder members of the modern Commonwealth and has been a democracy ever since then. I don't think there's any deficit as such in the spirit of democracy here. But it is possible, always democracy being more of a journey and less of a destination, that many other areas to be addressed as you go along come up. And this is what we mean when we talk about institution strengthening and what kind of reforms are needed. But these are done invariably by the Commonwealth in very close consultation with the election commissioner, which is an independent body, and the government of the country as well. So I think it is not to be prejudged as to what issues will emerge from an examination of that type. Even from our election observation, the very frank observations have been made, and these will also need to be addressed whenever this dialogue takes place.